Greetings. Christ is risen. John's record of events on that first Easter Sunday, according to John's Gospel, chapter 20. Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb and sees the stone rolled away. She runs off to tell Peter and John that Jesus' body has been removed from the tomb. Peter and John go to check. John gets there first, looks in, and sees the linen cloths lying to one side, but does not go in. Peter goes inside and sees the cloths. John finally enters, and we are told he saw and believed. Although they still didn't understand from the scriptures that Jesus was going to rise from the dead. They return home. Mary Magdalene, that is, weeping outside the tomb, sees two angels sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying. They ask Mary why she is weeping, and she says they have taken her Lord away and she doesn't know where they have hid him. Then, behind her, she sees Jesus, but mistakes him for the gardener. He also asks why she is weeping and for whom she is looking. Then Jesus speaks Mary's name, and in that very instant, Mary recognizes Jesus. She goes off to tell the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." The disciples are gathered together on that Easter Sunday in the evening behind locked doors for fear of the Jews. Jesus suddenly appears in their midst and says, "Peace be with you." They see his wounds and they know that it really is him. Jesus breathes his Spirit on them, giving them authority to forgive and authority also to withhold forgiveness. Thomas is not present with the disciples on Easter Sunday evening. A week later, they're gathered together once more, and this time Thomas is with them. Jesus appears to them again. Jesus greets them, the same greeting, "Peace be with you." And then he speaks directly to Thomas and invites him to touch his wounds and believe. Thomas sees and believes and utters the acclamation, "My Lord and my God." Jesus commends those who have not seen and yet have believed. By now, all the disciples, except of course Judas, have seen and believed. Mary Magdalene has seen and believed. The two disciples who walked to Emmaus on that first Easter Sunday have seen and believed. Is there anyone in the gospel accounts who has not seen but believed? We realize in chapter 20 of John's Gospel just how important seeing is. And of course, Thomas gets bad press because initially on Easter Sunday he doesn't see and doesn't believe and says he won't believe until he sees, and then a week later does see and does believe. But everybody else prior to Thomas has seen and believed. Mary Magdalene sees the stone rolled away. She sees that the body of Jesus is missing. Peter and John go to the tomb. John looks in. He sees the linen cloths, but no body. Peter goes in and sees the linen cloths, but no body. John enters the tomb and he sees and believes. Mary, weeping outside the tomb, sees two angels. After a brief conversation, she sees who she thinks is the gardener standing behind her, which turns out to be Jesus. So she sees this man, but she doesn't really see, because she doesn't recognize who he is. Jesus calls her name, and she sees in the true sense of that word. And in fact, she goes off to the disciples and she says, I have seen the Lord. The disciples, gathered in the upper room on that Easter Sunday, suddenly experience Jesus standing in their midst. They see and they believe. Thomas is not there. A week later, the disciples are gathered together once more, and Thomas is with them, and he sees and believes. Clearly, seeing is crucial for the majority of people when it comes to faith. We need to see with our physical eyes to some extent, sometimes, but in a deeper way, we need to see and to understand and to recognize. We might not have seen the risen Christ in a literal sense. We might not have even seen the risen Christ in a vision. But most of us need to see signs. We need to see evidence pointing to the reality of Christ's resurrection. We need to see with the eyes of the mind to understand the truth of it. If we are going to believe, we must be convinced. We need to see in that deeper sense of the word. No one will convince us utterly simply by explanation. We've got to be able to see and know that it is real for ourselves. And we might not feel the resurrection all the time. Faith is believing without seeing, physically and literally. But in order to have faith, in order to believe in the resurrection, something needs to unlock inside of us. A veil over our eyes needs to be removed. Something supernatural needs to happen so that we're able to see and have real conviction. Death and resurrection are principles that operate in nature. Like an example which Jesus uses is seed, which must die in order for there to be new life. And of course, we know the story of the butterflies. They are principles that appear in nature, death and resurrection. But it's a step further to try to believe that resurrection is for us, human beings. Ronald Rolheiser says, the Gospels assure us that, like his birth, the resurrection was physical, real, not just some alteration inside the consciousness of believers. After the resurrection, we are assured Jesus' tomb was empty. People could touch him. He ate food with them. He was not a ghost. But Jesus' rising from the dead was not a brute slap in the face for his critics, a non-negotiable fact that left skeptics with nothing to say. The resurrection didn't make a big splash. It was not some spectacular event that exploded into the world as the highlight on the evening news. It had the same dynamics as the incarnation itself. After he rose from the dead, Jesus was seen by some, but not by others. He was understood by some, but not by others. Some understood his meaning, and that meaning changed their lives. Others were indifferent towards Jesus, and still others understood what had happened, but hardened their hearts against it and tried to destroy the truth. So why the difference between some who see and believe, and some who see and don't believe, and some who don't see and don't believe? What makes some people see the resurrection and other people not? What causes some people to understand the mystery of the resurrection of Jesus and to embrace that mystery, while other people are indifferent towards it and maybe even filled with hatred, but they reject the truth of the resurrection? As Ronald Rolheiser says, Hugo of St. Victor used to say, "Love is the eye." When we look at anything through the eyes of love, we see correctly, we understand, and we properly appropriate the mystery. The reverse is true. When we look at anything through eyes that are jaded, that are cynical, that are jealous, that are bitter, we will not see correctly, we will not understand, and we will not properly appreciate the mystery. Peter enters the tomb, sees the linen cloth that had covered the body of Jesus, but he does not understand. Then the beloved disciple enters, and he sees and he believes. The beloved disciple is perhaps a personification of love, because he and Jesus had a special relationship. So the eyes of love are opened to see so that the heart can believe. Love grasps the mystery. Love is the eye. It is the eye that enables us to see and to understand the resurrection. That is why, after the resurrection, some saw Jesus, but others did not see him. Some understood the resurrection, others did not understand the resurrection. Those with the eyes of love saw and understood. Those without the eyes of love either didn't see anything, or they were bewildered or upset by what they saw. Some saw and took a while to be convinced, but eventually they really saw and believed. Ronald Rolheiser says, there are lots of ways to be blind. I remember an Easter Sunday some years ago when I was a young graduate student in San Francisco. Easter Sunday was late that year, and it was a spectacularly beautiful spring day. But on that particular day, I was mostly blind to what was around me. I was young, homesick, alone on Easter Sunday, and nursing a huge heartache. That colored everything I was seeing and feeling. It was Easter Sunday in spring, in high sunshine, but for what I was seeing, it might as well have been midnight on Good Friday in the dead of winter. Lonely and nursing a heartache, I took a walk to calm my restlessness. At the entrance of a park, I saw a blind beggar holding a sign that read, "It's spring and I'm blind." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was blind that day, more blind than that beggar, seeing neither spring nor the resurrection. What I was seeing were only those things that reflected what was going on inside my own heart. If we look with the eyes of love, we will see resurrection all around us. The truth is that life for us is full of little dyings and little risings. It's not just that life is tough and deals us some nasty blows. Life is a journey that involves necessarily the bruising of our egos, learning that we have to give a little, take a little, sigh a little, let our little hearts cry a little, as Otis Redding sang in The Glory of Love. Jesus spoke the necessity of the seed dying for there to be new life. We need to allow what is false in us to die too. To die to this need to accumulate, the need to cling to things, the desire to impress people, the desire to control events and to control our lives and our future, the desire to accomplish so that we have all the marks of success in our lives. And if we do this, if we die to these things, then the new freedom that we have will testify to the truth of resurrection. We will have a new joy. There will be a new spring in our steps. We won't be so dependent on our circumstances being favorable all the time. God, give us the eyes to see resurrection, the eyes to really see resurrection, to see the signs of new life that are in our lives and all around us, to recognize the little risings that occur from time to time. Give us grace, Lord, to embrace the little dyings each day, the little dyings, so that we experience little births of something new, more pure and more beautiful, so that we are becoming increasingly free of our egos, of our false selves, of everything that would steer us on the wrong course, so that we are not rising to everything we can become. God, we seek your grace to be active in our lives, and we ask that this day we might be able to embrace the little deaths in order that we might see the resurrections, the uprisings, the risings, and be filled with new freedom and joy. May God bless you. Amen.